This is EVN Report, and you're listening to Up Close and Personal, a podcast that goes beyond the bylines and bios. I'm Maria Titizian, and in each episode, I sit down with a guest to explore the full story behind their work, the turning points, the quiet moments, the experiences that have shaped them. Journalists, academics, artists, and more. Some you'll know, some you'll be meeting for the first time. But all of them have something to say if we take the time to listen. Hello and welcome to Up Close and Personal. Today I have the honor of sitting down with Gulnara Shahinian, a trailblazing human rights advocate whose life's work has focused on combating modern slavery, human trafficking, and gender-based violence around the world. With a career spanning over 3 decades, she served as the first UN Special Rapporteur on contemporary forms of slavery and currently acts as Vice Chair of GRETA, the Council of Europe's group of experts on action against trafficking in human beings. Gulnara is also the founder and director of Democracy Today, one of Armenia's longest-standing human rights NGOs, which has worked with women and girls in border and conflict-affected communities to build resilience and opportunity through peace building and social enterprise. She has carried out missions in over 30 countries and has helped shape Armenia's engagement in the international women, peace, and security agenda. But behind the titles and field missions is a woman shaped by deep conviction, personal courage, and a quiet belief in the power of small acts to change lives. Gulnara, my dear friend, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. I'm very honored to be here. And, I would like to say that what I was doing with love. It's always very difficult to be a representative of a small country. You want to do so much in order to put your country on a map.
Yeah.
And to raise the awareness on what your country is. I was always proud when next to my name was written Armenia. When I was traveling as UN Special Rapporteur, and then in brackets they were putting Armenia, I was so proud. And when the question was asked to me, are you from Armenia, this oldest country, a Christian country, I was so happy. And I was starting to tell about my country, so this was an opportunity to share.
And shared you have.
Also, sometimes I was thinking that it's very difficult to be an Armenian woman with a very long intellectual history. You always want to prove that you are part of that culture. You are part of this heritage. That's also another issue. And the third issue is my parents, my family. Because my family was the ones from whose, family, 3 people have been exiled to Siberia. So they were always fought for truth. And they were working in Armenian schools in Georgia, in Tbilisi, trying to keep Armenian schools going. And it was always like an example for me, looking at my mother, who was traveling to these far villages in order to keep children going to Armenian schools, because Armenian school was under the closure, and not many people were coming to the school. So every Sunday they were traveling with my father to the communities, trying to bring them. And we had a very interesting community of children from border community living with us. So this was very interesting. And they shaped my view on how the world should be.
How the world should be, and
Absolutely.
Yet it isn't. Gulnara, I've known you for many years. And, in preparation for this interview, I was trying to dig deeper and find out more about you. And to be honest, I could speak for hours on end about the work that you've done. And, you've devoted your life to fighting some of the darkest injustices in the world. And this is not an easy task to do because, as a people who have seen so much oppression and war and conflict, it's very hard to not lose yourself in that. So how do you protect yourself? How do you protect your own sense of hope and emotional resilience?
When I finalize the work, when I can help somebody in the situation of complete devastation, that gives me so much power. I've seen situations all over the world, like children in Haiti, with the piles of children, biographies of children who were going to be changed, who is going to be sold to another country. I've seen children they have been used as, prostitutes for, in order to keep their life going. I have seen such situations in different parts of the world and even developed countries. In the center of Europe, when we speak about high culture, democracy and everything, children were in the worst situation. And I remember in one of the European countries when I was raising the issue of education first, work of children next, they were saying, no, children have to work first in order to survive. And this was Central European country. But when I was trying to raise these issues through Human Council and receiving, support of the countries and making this work, was giving me so much power. In one of the countries when I was entering, they told me, when you enter and speak about slavery, you will be imprisoned.
Did you speak about it?
I will speak. And I got it. And I got the project, I got the program. In 3 years, the president of the country was my best friend. I was traveling on every occasion. I received awards from him, but speaking on slavery, making him to understand that if the half of the population, even more, doesn't function for the country, and they are in shadow economy, and his country needs development, so he would lose his country very soon. He has to bring these people in. So it cost me a lot to work with him, to work with religious leaders, to work with the community in order to bring understanding that we have to get these people out of shadow economy, out of houses of the people. And every victory gave me so much energy.
No, I can see that, absolutely. And, as I said at the top, you've worked in over 30 countries on anti-trafficking.
Even 40.
Okay, 40.
In many countries for a number of times.
Yeah, I see. And modern slavery, which, still it boggles the imagination. But in these decades of experience that you've had in working in this field, are there patterns or root causes do you see repeating themselves across borders? Is there a commonality there that you've noticed?
First of all, there are two ways of slavery. If we think that old type of slavery has been, by laws, have been diminished, no. People still work in a slavery, in a traditional forms of slavery, because they they belong to one of the tribal group, or they believe that if their parents worked as slaves for this family, they have to continue. They don't know what does it mean to have freedom and freedom of choice. So this is still there in many African countries. And trafficking is there also.
Across the world,
I would say. Of course, across the world. Because everything is done very superficially. Nobody goes and digs deeper to understand why it happens. Where in economy are these gaps? What we have to change? You can see through all of these years many policies, numerous policies, lots of money spent. But in reality, the situation is the same, even worse. I had many fights with the organization that fights child labor, because sometimes in UN they use this diplomatic wording in order to receive money from the donors. But diplomatic wording doesn't help when you have children in slavery. In my situation, like in Madagascar, I have meeting children who were as domestic workers. A child who was working, he had to carry 5 25-liter bottles of water a day in order to have a bowl of rice. He's never gone to school. And the money was given to NGO, $1 million to help these children. And what they were doing, they were not giving food. They were teaching them how to do straw bags.
How to do what?
Bags made from straw.
Oh, straw, okay.
That these children know, they didn't even born, they didn't know how to do it. So...
Yeah, development aid is always problematic.
Of course,
especially
and corruption is very high. And they do not care about people. It's just sometimes programs go from one country to another without understanding the realities of the country.
Sure, every country has its own cultural, social challenge.
Absolutely.
But at the root of it, it's economic, is it not?
Root of it is disrespect towards each other. Humans have not learned to respect each other. Whatever we do, if we do not put respect in the center of it, we will continue doing like this. We live in a century that has made so many inventions to serve humans. Almost maybe 90% of inventions have been done in our century. But what we have? We have slavery.
Yeah.
We have our own children used as slaves. You know, in one country, I had a very interesting situation when a very high-ranking person came to my room and said, "You have to leave immediately my country, because you are teaching children not to be as sexual slaves or slave in my home. And we are used to it. It's our culture."
Right.
Can you tell me that the high-ranking person, educated person who has graduated from Sorbonne can come and tell me that? So my answer was, okay, bring me a letter from your president, because I have invitation from your president. Otherwise, I would not leave, because I couldn't even answer. I was so shocked, because you speak about that children should have a different future, and you speak, you now, teach. You break our culture. At the same time, I saw 4 women who have been raped first by gangs, then by UN peacekeeping forces, but they didn't stop helping their own country. They are the power for me, not to break up. They had 300 children in their NGO, and they're helping these, children who got out from the slavery, they have been domestic workers, they have been domestic slaves. They help these children. Can you imagine? This woman doesn't cry. They doesn't say, okay, we are humiliated. They just continue work for the others.
There's so many lessons to be drawn from that kind of strength, isn't there?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Gulnara, you mentioned your parents and the work that they were doing with border villages and education. And what was it in your early life, though, that made you or pulled you towards justice and this kind of activism and this kind of really, really difficult work that you do? Because look, it's not something that everyone can do. It's very difficult to maintain your emotional resilience amid this kind of horror.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My first story with a woman in Yerevan was a woman who had been sold by her family in Armenia.
What year was this?
It was 2000. And I remember when, after interviewing her and some other women, I went to Dubai to do analysis in prisons, to do analysis in disco bar. It was the most hardest. Because during daytime you were doing interviews, in the evening you were crying. You didn't know how to present it.
Because there were Armenian women who were trafficked.
Absolutely, to Dubai. And the worst part of the story was when I came to Armenia and published report. Everybody was putting finger on me saying, she's a betrayer.
They said that you were...
Absolutely.
Because you were talking about...
About dark sides of our country. We shouldn't speak about this. But the issue that after that there was a commission established. The law has been adopted, and they started to do programs. They give them so much empowerment. It's enormously difficult. You can't imagine how difficult it is sometimes to talk to these women and to understand that what is in your hands, you cannot give them promises. You cannot give them hope. Hope you will build yourself through your programs, through your work. Because, giving them just false hope, it's very, very difficult.
Was that one of the most difficult reports you've ever had to write?
Yes. In UN,
because it was yours?
Yeah. But it was not, there is no my name.
No, yours as in, it was because they were your compatriots.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. But it's always difficult when, in any situation, when you interview people. In many situations, I remember I had translators and assistants when we're traveling to different countries. And sometimes they couldn't stand while I was interviewing. Even men were crying. Not many people wanted to come with me because it was so depressing every time. We're followed by criminals. I was doing, a situation of child labor in gold mines. Far, far, far in Colombia, on the borders of Colombia, Ecuador and Colombia. And we were followed by a group of people, criminals, because they didn't want me to publish these photos and documents. And I remember there were 2 men translators. They didn't know. They were saying, let us stop. Let us go to some place. Let us go to some place. But you knew that you would be the first to bring the story to Human Rights Council. And not always Human Rights Council is open to such conversation. Not always they want to listen that such things are happening in the world. And sometimes even when I was publishing a report on child labor in mines and quarries, they were saying it's so narrow.
But there's
can you imagine? There
lives.
Is human lives. There is human lives, and behind that there are families. Sometimes they were going because they found gold there, and the entire family was going. Boys were working in mines, girls were given to prostitutions, and mothers and fathers. Mother was working at the cook, and that's the same prostitution. So entire family was breaking down. And in order to bring it to Human Rights Council's attention, it cost a lot to talk to technicians, to put photos because they didn't allow us to put photos, to, speak honestly to each delegation, to raise it, to speak on those diplomats that we need to do, diplomatic actions not to have this situation. It was a lot.
As a young woman, did you see yourself doing this?
Yes, I think.
Why?
I will tell you a funny story about my mother, because I learned it again back from my parents. My mother was going, it was after Stalin time, they were going to communities, and she was coming laughingly, as I do sometimes, laughingly, telling me stories that she went to Armenian school, and children who have swollen from, they didn't eat enough food, with swollen body, dirty clothing. They were singing the songs with the, showing the sign and saying, this beautiful life is given to us by Stalin.
Okay.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
She was coming and she didn't know how to bring the story, where to tell the story. It was so cynical. These children haven't eaten, but she was continuing working. She was going to other villages, to other communities. And I remember once, there was published by Soviet government a book. Most of the people were hungry, and the book of this was called "Of a Healthy and Good Food," and the book was with lots of illustrations of food we have never seen in Soviet Union.
Right.
So the book was published, and my mother decided to write to Soviet government, to First Secretary, and write that women of these communities would need this book. And we were all joking on her, saying, these people, they haven't seen this food. They are hungry. But she said, this is let them see. And she wrote a letter. And I remember after a year, Dad was telling, some soldiers came to our house. And my father was telling, okay, it was for her, and asked her name, and they took her. And my father ran after her. And
Your mother?
Yes. And we thought that she's going to be in prison because fear was so high. Instead, from Mikoyan, Anastas Mikoyan, she received a book of these recipes, what she wanted. And in that book, he was writing, I'm giving to Armenian workers in the communities.
It was an interesting time.
So that's a very interesting time.
Yeah, indeed.
And you have a lot to learn from her resilience, from her sense of humor, because without sense of humor, you cannot.
Yeah, and whenever I see you, you're always smiling. Always smiling. And so when people don't know the work that you've done, and when they do, they would be surprised. But it's almost like a defense mechanism.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. After every mission, I was still almost 10 days sitting and analyzing and thinking, what should I do? How to help? Because I hate having reports on a shelf. And I was always thinking that my reports would be on shelf, and who would care about my reports? But very recently, I was very much surprised because I was doing a report on diplomats. I made report on diplomats using slavery in their homes. And this was a very funny story. My assistant was laughing at me because many African diplomats were inviting me to dinner. And they were asking questions, what do you think? Is it slavery if I bring children from my country? I give them to education in Geneva. I give them I give them that. What do you think? I was saying it is slavery if you do not give them, full rights. It is slavery. So after that, they were not having friends with me, but I had the dinner receiving from them. So, it was like you have to explain even at the Human Rights Council that this is classical slavery, what they put children in. Understanding was not that. It was a big fight. But when people like that country, I was saying, president, even I was using some diplomatic tricks, understood that starting to work with me, it was a big award. It was a award. After that, the country that didn't give, didn't use the word slavery, he gave me a award. And even a camel, he gave me a camel to be able to come back because it was a present from a president.
Real camel?
Real camel. He said, you will come because we will make you come and you will be having your camel. It was a big joke. I was looking at what I'm going to do with this camel. But the recognition that they changed. And they recognized, and they start to think about it. I mean,
that's the first step, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. He accepted, and I'm following up. I'm not anymore, a special rapporteur on slavery, and I cannot do it because, war entered into my career as well. I raised the issue on Nagorno-Karabakh and non-recognition of Nagorno-Karabakh in Human Rights Council. And that's why Azerbaijan and Turkey called me terrorist. And I have a written letter. It was very interesting. For the first time, you have a word from Azerbaijan and Turkey calling you terrorist, that you work with the, Nagorno-Karabakh. But the issue was, I was very much concerned when they called this country unrecognized state. What does it mean? I was trying to raise this issue. What does it mean to be unrecognized? Do they have not equal power, equal rights? Aren't they treated equally under the law? What is that? I wanted to raise it at Human Rights Council, and I did it. And that was the price I paid. I cannot be elected anymore. I can do only consultancy.
Because of the protests by Azerbaijan and Turkey.
Absolutely. They were coming, they were threatening me, they were coming every time, sitting 6-8 men during my presentations,
trying to intimidate you.
Absolutely. But I was coming from the scene and saying, how wonderful you are here. Such a men's choir. Let us sing together. They were looking at me like, look at this crazy woman. But the entire hall was laughing. So I needed to raise this issue that they are following me.
Sure.
They are doing this. And they didn't allow this to continue my work. But it doesn't matter.
Well, you do so many other things.
Absolutely.
Let's come back to Armenia. In 1994, you established Democracy Today.
Yes.
Which, pretty bold step. Armenia had just been independent for 3 years. Just
Absolutely.
out of, the war, energy crisis, devastation. What did you envision then for Democracy Today, and how has that vision evolved over time?
I was lucky to be head of the Foreign Affairs Department at the City Council at that time. And all the changes were coming through me. There were 2 mayors where I was before independence, and 3 mayors I stayed were after. It was very interesting to see how Armenia opens up to international, assistance during earthquake, to new embassies opening in Armenia. It was rebirth of Armenia.
Yeah, and you were witness to it all.
Absolutely, and Armenia needed assistance. And that's why we established the organization to assist democratic changes in Armenia. At the beginning, we were just assisting refugees and, people who were coming from other countries to help Armenia. But then we decided that we need to go into politics. We need to change our approach. And that's why we established Democracy Today. Much has been changed. And, working in human rights, you have to have a quite interesting policy when you're speaking about, safety and security. Of course, you have to change the way you're working when you have a different officials in the government.
We've had many different officials.
Absolutely. And that's why you go low profile in order to continue your work. And you open up when you see you can speak about what you are doing and your work will change.
Yeah. People don't think about that. Civil society organizations in Armenia have worked under, like we said, so many different approaches to democracy, to human rights. And in order to survive, you have to know how to work in that system. Otherwise, you just pack up and go home.
No, absolutely. I think you have to change. You have to be ready to these changes. You have to be prepared that if you are working in human rights, it is not always a nice and good atmosphere, supportive atmosphere. Mm-hmm. So you have to try to adapt. And what we were doing, we never showed up. For many years, you would not see us, but we were continuing our work on the borders with youth and women. But you would never see us on the seminars, on the events. We were low profile. For us, it was very important to continue work we're doing and to show systematicity of what we're doing. There are communities like in a border, like in Tavush, Voskepar, Voskevan. We were there for 12, 15 years. So at the beginning, there were parents, then grandparents, and then children. It was very interesting to see this transformation. It is a very hard process in this, very vibrant times to make children's mentality, youth mentality and women's mentality. But it was very, to say rewarding when they're coming to seminar, when they're coming to program. You see completely different phrases, definitions. I remember a very funny situation when we were having a seminar for youth on fake news. And when we had small money and we said, what you want us to do? They said, invite our parents.
Oh, okay.
That was very interesting. Mm-hmm. And we invited parents and teachers because they said parents go to Facebook and not always they want to know.
I know. It's the biggest problem.
Absolutely.
That we have. Yeah.
And that was very interesting.
And that the children knew that their parents needed training on fake
Absolutely.
news.
Can you imagine?
Yes, because they're all on Facebook, which is full of fake news.
That was excellent.
You've been deeply involved in shaping Armenia's role in, women, peace, and security.
Yeah.
What do you believe Armenia still needs to do to fully implement its commitments to human rights, women's rights, children's rights?
Armenia has to strengthen the dialogue with the international community.
It doesn't now?
Not much, not much. And also have a really very good message to send to international community about its policies. Because sometimes the message inside and outside, they're not very well so formulated, the messages. I think Armenia needs that. Armenia needs also very much to work with the diaspora, its own diaspora. That's why, if you see now a plan of action that we helped to Minister of Foreign Affairs to develop, we included a special paragraph on working with diaspora, because sending a message of women and peace through diaspora community, you change the status of diaspora communities as well in the world. Diaspora starts to speak about peace and the women, about different concepts, about the most modern and most oldest concepts.
But Gulnara, do you not feel that women oftentimes in Armenia are not in the room when there's discussion about peace and security?
Absolutely. And not always women are allowed to be, in a diplomacy. I remember my own situation when I was coming, because in my practice, I was meeting from the person who can be identified as slave up to the president. And I could convey the message and I could talk. And I was coming and saying always to some people in the government that, what do you want me to convey from Armenia? Because I have this chance to put Armenia on a map. They were saying, no. Oh, are you going to Geneva? Are you going to Strasbourg? Can you carry this? So this was the attitude. Because I was a woman, I was always telling that. I am resource for you, and willing resource, and professional resource. Can you use me in order to convey the message? And I'm sure they didn't have enough message. They did not have proper message. It's changed now very much. It very much changed.
It is changing, but we still,
of course,
we
of course.
struggle and stumble when it comes to strategic communication.
Yes.
To knowing how to, like you said, formulate the right messaging for internal and external audiences,
Yes.
for the diaspora as well.
Yes, you are right. But at the same time, what I like, there were changes, of course, in attitudes toward the women. I always hate this quota issue.
Which issue?
Quota, when they're saying
Quota.
women have to be appointed by quotas. You know, I don't want to be appointed because I'm a woman.
You know, okay.
It is temporary issue. You are absolutely
it's a
right.
temporary measure.
But at the same time, the appointment which has been done, they are quality appointment. Women have been appointed because they are professionals.
Yeah, and look at all the men who have been appointed who did not have the qualifications.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I know
I
I've had
agree.
this argument over the years with women primarily who were against the quota.
Yes.
And I understand that it's almost demeaning, but it's a temporary measure so that society starts to see. Look at the women we have today in positions of power.
Yeah.
And compare them with the men in positions of power. Oh, I'm sorry.
You're right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. But as I was telling you about the war situation, maybe the power of these women would make this men to be more stronger, to learn from women.
Yeah, but women have to understand that power.
Yes,
we have yet to understand it as women.
That's you right. That's you.
This is one of
right.
the biggest issues that we have, I think. I have so many questions, so I'm just going to sort of bulldoze through them because there's other things I want to talk about as well. You've helped build around 200 social enterprises for women in border communities.
Yeah.
Can you share a story that illustrates the transformative power of one of these projects?
I always, maybe I'm very positivist, and I see things in an always positive way, and it helps me.
That's why we're friends, I think.
To go through all of these difficulties. But I can tell you that it was very interesting with women. I see them very much changed. They're very much completely different because grants, small grants which we're giving to women, they were mostly giving to women, but entire family was invited to work around this. And I always remember a wonderful story of women who came saying that, her husband is terrible. They are on the edge of divorce. He humiliates her. And, we thought, okay, let us start with a grant. Let us give you the small grant and invite your husband. And we talk to him that the grant is yours and he has to help you. He is the one who has to help you, but leader are you. So through one grant, second grant, they established potato chips small factory in their home. Beginning was $500. They got another grant. Then they got third grant. And then they applied to World Bank and the bank because they already had bases. Mm-hmm. And once she came to my house and said, me being stronger changed my husband and the community around. Everybody now tries to fit into my schedule. The same was with refugee women in Balauvid. We had a group of refugee women who we again, identified, we worked with them, provided with grants, and they proudly were coming to the trainings with name tags. And they said, we changed the community with our attitude, because at the beginning we're similar in dirty clothing, women with everyday life. We didn't take care of ourselves. And now the change came. Everybody looks at us for advice.
It's empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that is the most important, that women have to understand their power.
Mm-hmm.
Another tiny example, we were also decided to provide women with health assistance. Mm-hmm. And at the beginning, women were saying, no, we do not this gynecologist. Let us have this for my husband, for children. We're saying, no.
You have to take care of yourself first.
You are the center of the family. Mm-hmm. You are your health. So we brought the doctor from Yerevan, and she was taking care. And then we're bringing them to Yerevan if there are problems, giving them medicine. So from 10 women at the beginning, now we have 300 women. We have line of women. And the situation in families, in communities changed. They started to apply. They have their self-confidence. Mm-hmm. They started to apply to new positions. They started to speak about new roles. And we also organize during our trainings meeting with excellent women, meeting with ambassadors, meeting with the people who from communities they would never meet and they never have opportunity to talk to. So they go to community and speak about their experiences, and so they become so undeclared community leaders.
Yes.
And that is extremely
And
good.
then one day real community leaders.
Absolutely, absolutely. And also, you've been at our conference. We bring them to our conference to meet the international community, and we meet them to speak.
No, that kind of networking, that kind of exposure,
Absolutely.
it's so important, and it's a constant learning cycle for them.
Yes.
So you've worked in global institutions, local politics, national politics. Where do you think, from your experience, is real change from the bottom up, grassroots up, or top down?
Bottom up.
Yeah.
The change happened when we had this Velvet Revolution. It was a transformative power when we realized that we can change.
No, absolutely.
It was, people could never believe that change might happen. And it was their power. I always say it was not the revolutionary power there with Pashinyan and others, but it was the people's belief.
Yeah, they had enough.
Absolutely. And people have to still continue to develop dialogues and talk to people, talk to government. There are so many resources in country. And sometimes people get frustrated. Oh, they do not take me for job. Write letter. Start dialogue. Talk to them. Maybe once it would not be accepted, but you continue.
No, of course.
It's a process. Again, sometimes I see, I bring comparison from different countries. And sometimes I see how it doesn't work. I saw the very well-educated leaders of the country that were really very ignorant about human rights. And, sometimes when you think about authoritarian systems, they are not creative. All over the world, they have the same patterns of behavior. And I've been in such authoritarian systems where I was afraid that I would not leave the country that day because it was very dangerous. But democracy has so many varieties and freedoms. Could we talk before so freely? But we never use our freedom in a proper way. We think that everyone has right to say whatever they see. They do not feel responsibility of what they say, what they write, how much it will impact on the entire population.
Right, and it's a constant battle. I remember, I was involved for a short period of time with women's rights, and somebody from Europe said to me, just because, for example, a Northern European country has established equal rights or, equality, it's not something that you can say, okay, the battle is over and now I can go home.
No.
Democracy is the same
Absolutely.
way. Working with communities is the same way. Pressuring government is the same way. And we lose sight of that. And, we've been through so much since 2018.
Yes.
That hasn't given us time to think about what kind of country we want to build at the moment.
Absolutely.
You mentioned something about authoritarianism, and in the current global context, we see rising authoritarianism and shrinking civic spaces.
Yes.
What keeps you hopeful that we won't fall into that pattern again one day?
But at the same time, you see that there is a rise of countries that are, for example, the Hague Group that are supporting Gaza, people in Gaza. There is race of, standing against authoritarianism. There are movements all over the world of women in streets of big cities. And yesterday I was on a meeting with OSCE, that I am part of the group of women in OSCE. And these women are going from every country and having demonstrations for the rights of women, for the democracy. It is there. And I think you're absolutely right, close up. We do not see that, or for example, that a situation like it happened in Nagorno-Karabakh with blockade, it happened in many parts of the world. And we had to learn these patterns. With the same Palestinians, it happened for a long time, and policies of not letting them in and, citizenship, they were part of the process for a long time. And I think our politicians should see a bigger picture.
That this is where we fumble
Absolutely.
every single day. We
Absolutely.
don't look at things from an eagle's eye view.
Absolutely.
And we don't even, we don't even learn from our
Yes,
mistakes.
absolutely. Absolutely. We have to understand. For example, yesterday I was in another Zoom where a woman has established coalition for, helping countries that had blockades. I was very surprised. I immediately collected all the materials and sent it to her. Coalition for International Criminal Courts. We published a book. I think I've shared with you all the laws. We sent to coalition. We have to work widely, seeing the wider picture, and then bring this to our country, the best experiences.
And we have to be part of the global conversation.
By all
We have
means.
to, I remember I was going on a work thing with a young woman from Artsakh many, many years ago. And we were talking, and I said, I was just asking her questions if she knew about, the occupation in Israel, with the Palestinians, or does she know about
Serbia?
All of, and she had no knowledge of it. And I said, if we are going to fight for our cause, we have to know what is happening in the world, to learn from, to avoid, to know how to formulate the messaging. So
That's very important. And sometimes they do not want to do it. I remember when I was going to Artsakh, from some missions I was coming to Artsakh and saying, please write a report on women's rights. Human Rights Council accept this report. They never did. Write report to UNESCO. They never did. Write report on children's rights.
Because we just thought the status quo was going to hold and everything was going to be okay.
I was telling them, I was explaining them, do you want me to write for you? Because you have to put yourself on a political map of the world. It doesn't matter, you would sit at home and say, we have 1,000 monuments. You have to send it to UNESCO. You have UNESCO to recognize that there are this million monuments. That this is your work. This is your homework, what you should do. And you have to do it on a daily basis. It is very difficult. There are 200 states. Many are recognized, many not recognized. You have to put your path through the states to move and put the bright things that your country has on a map.
Yes, a message for all times.
Yes.
I want to just switch gears a bit. What has been your greatest challenge in your life?
Absence of support. Sometimes beginning, when you come excited with ideas. Some people say, oh, this has been old idea, though they didn't even read that. To excite people, to make them follow and make them join you, it's very difficult.
Sure.
But for example, at the Human Rights Council, I felt sometimes when people were standing up applauding. For me, it was a lot. Like countries were even crying when I was presenting report, like on children in mining sector. I remember Holy See was crying. Ambassador came up to me and said, I could never imagine. Or some achievements. These are positive, but there are lots of
challenges. What's your greatest fear?
Greatest fear, we have to support democratic movements in Armenia.
Your fear is that we will slip.
Absolutely. We mustn't lose. We do not support a man. We support the policy that he's taking.
Yes.
We should always remember we do not support Pashinyan. His policy is, and his team's policy, of course with mistakes, of course with this, but it is a very difficult time they are doing their work. They are working in an extremely difficult time when you cannot, rely on any partner. Today he is your partner, tomorrow he might not be your partner. It is very difficult, and we have to understand, we have to see ourselves in a global policy. That's why I proposed to this year's conference, and I'm hoping very much that Ministry of Foreign Affairs and other organizations would adopt to create a coalition of, there is already a coalition of small states. But Armenia sent a message to a coalition of small states to work on peace and security. So unite us through democratic changes. Be part of this powerful coalition, because the coalition of small states has made a great changes in Human Rights Council. These things which were not happening in Security Council, they were bringing it through General Assembly. So we have to find in this world ways to convey our message through different ways. And we have to be part of this very positive democratic coalitions.
As someone who has spent so much time working across borders in conflict zones, witnessing some of the most grotesque violations of human rights, what does home mean to you?
Safety.
Safety?
Yes. Security.
That's what home means to you.
Surrounding with the loved people. And listening Armenian language all the time.
Yes, of course.
This is very important. I was always telling my friends and those who are living abroad, I said, when I come back, the first thing I need to listen to Armenian.
What is your favorite Armenian word or phrase?
Ser.
Well, we start with said, end with said. I ask about legacy oftentimes, not in a grandiose kind of thing, but your children, grandchildren, one day, when they ask you what mattered most to you in your life's work, what would you want them to understand?
That what is done for future, for safe future for all of us, where we wouldn't be afraid and wouldn't singing songs as the children were singing in Georgia about Stalin, where we would be singing real songs about our future, about our country, how do we love. We would not fail ourselves and would not be saying one thing and thinking another as our parents did sometimes.
No, because they had to.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we started with love, right? I remember years ago, I was complaining here at EVN Report. I said, I'm going to write an editorial about how we don't love each other enough, and that maybe if we loved each other, and people, were kind of like, what are you talking about? But it's about love and respect if we don't have that toward one another.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what we didn't learn. We do not understand that writing such things in Facebook is disrespect. And disrespect not the person whom you write. It disrespects towards you, because you are non-professional.
Yes. Oh, I mean, I have no words.
It is always so shameful when I hear such things in a world where you can get information any place, when you can even get in search of information, you can go to ChatGPT and just get everything. How can, after having all of this information, you use it? You be ignorant. But this is again the system of authoritarianism. They do not want to go beyond all of what is happening.
Because it's hard work.
Look at the country, the biggest country like Russia. Little by little, the friends of Russia are changing. The Russia, which was looking for the Europe with Peter I and always the civilized Europe, now they work with North Korea, China. Is it Russia that we loved? Is it Russia that we're thinking about education and prosperity? It's a different
culture,
Russia.
language, history.
It's completely different Russia. So
these are examples that we have before us, and we have to be very cognizant of those.
Yeah. One very important thing in my policy when I am working, it's early warning signals, and specifically in the wording that countries are using. You see that the signal comes, which means that policy is changing. The words in the documents are changing. It means that...
Sometimes it's subtle, but if you look for them, you can find them.
Absolutely. And if you do not pay attention to this, it comes, it goes, it overflows you.
And then it's too late.
Absolutely. Yesterday I was speaking with OSCE about this situation. I said when Russia adopted the law on, it was values, it was traditional values. We were all shocked at UN Human Rights Council. We have a Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Why we don't need traditional values? But it demonstrated their going back to different ways. And now Georgia adopts this law.
These have to be red flags for us, I
Absolutely.
think, in Armenia, and we have to be very aware
Absolutely.
of them. I'm going to wrap up this interview with a bunch of rapid-fire questions that I like to ask my guests. Are you a morning person or a night person?
I'm that person.
What time do you
usually-
sleep?
Oh, 5 o'clock.
In the morning?
Yeah. I like to work at night.
Okay.
It's quiet, no telephone,
Yeah.
and I can
I like
concentrate.
working at night too, but not till 5 in the morning. No. Tea or coffee?
Oh, yes, coffee.
Coffee.
Coffee, and this is for me important to have coffee in the morning with my husband. This is tradition since I have married.
And how long have you been married?
Oh, 50 years.
50 years. We need to have champagne after the interview. What is your guilty pleasure after a long day that you don't like to admit to?
Having a glass of wine with the family.
That's not a guilty pleasure. That's joy. Okay, but we'll take that as your... What is the one cause that you would fight for until your last breath on earth?
Truth.
What's the most rebellious
Truth
thing?
and justice.
And justice. What's the most rebellious thing you've ever done?
It's very hard to say, but in many countries, I was threatening presidents. And this was most rebellious. I was afraid that I would not be allowed to go to the country. In one country, a child has been raped by police. So last day, we always have meeting with the debriefing for the government and then meeting with president to debrief on what we have seen. So I started to threaten president that if this child, police would not be found who has been done, he would not be put in prison and the child right would be restored and the child who shouldn't be helped to go to school. I would raise this issue. I will have a press conference to raise this issue. And he looked at me, was a powerful man sitting next to me with a long biography and saying, I'm going to go home or not. So he said,
Pretty
yes,
rebellious.
Yes. And the only question he told me, how you're going to check it? I have my own mechanisms. Don't worry, I can check. So it was very funny when after a couple of months, I received a letter from the president's office that everything is settled. But I had also my contact. They said, yes, everything was settled immediately. But, I was like, what I'm doing, and it has happened in many countries, when for the truth, for the sake of your work, you have to tell the truth openly. And that might be a very dangerous thing.
See, I'm trying to lighten your mood, and you keep going back to these morbid stories, which I understand because it's your life's work. But I'm going to carry on. What is something totally ordinary that brings you extraordinary joy?
Sitting with family, having entire family together. They are all abroad now. Sitting with them and, having fun, dancing and singing. That's the most important thing.
It is, isn't it? I think that's the
Family
common thread with
unity.
all of our guests here.
Yeah,
Do you like the mountains or the sea?
mostly sea.
Mostly sea. We're always in search of the sea, aren't we?
Absolutely, absolutely. That's why I have projects in Martuni. I'm passing through Sevan. There is a special interest.
If you could go somewhere, teleport yourself somewhere outside of Armenia for lunch today, where would it be?
Outside of Armenia, I would say I'm Armenian.
No, I know, but just imagine. Gulnara.
A woman?
No, to have lunch. Where would you
to
go?
lunch. Oh, wow. I so tell about myself. To lunch.
In any other
I would
country,
go to
any
Africa.
city. You go to Africa. Where in
Yes.
Africa?
I would go to Mauritania,
Yeah.
which I love very much.
Okay.
It's very strange to say, but it became a second home. I traveled so much there.
And final question. Is there a rule you love to break?
Sometimes be polite.
Sometimes?
Sometimes be polite. Sometimes you want to burst out of your
Politeness. And not be polite.
Not be polite.
Wow. Gulnara, thank you so much for this wonderful conversation. You are a superpower in yourself, and it's an honor to know you.
Thank you so much. You know how much I value your work and how much I love you for so many years.
Yes, feeling is mutual. Thank you. Thanks for listening to Up Close and Personal. If you enjoyed this episode, Please follow and share the podcast wherever you get your shows. Until next time.